Welcome back to Cat Recaps. Diamond is a social media influencer who loves to party hard and spend her parents' wealth on expensive clothes and accessories. One night after clubbing, she sets off to continue partying elsewhere under the influence of alcohol and drugs. While on the way, Diamond starts her usual live sessions. She gets into it so much that she doesn't see a car driving towards her direction, and in a flash, she loses control and crushes the car. In no time, some officers arrive at the location and bring her out of the car. The officer proceeds to arrest her for drinking and driving, but she insists that she isn't drunk and goes on to demonstrate it while on her high heels to prove them wrong. It doesn't go as she expects, and immediately they cuff her and take her to the station. In no time, the news of her arrest spread in the whole city. One vlogger openly advises her to get her life together and stop depending on her parents' wealth. After her release, her mom gives her a piece of her mind for disgracing them so bad. Diamond signals her dad to say something, but it looks like he's also fed up with her behavior. She then defends herself, saying she gets paid to be a social media influencer, but her mom couldn't care less about it. She expresses frustration about how Diamond wakes up with the sole intention of just capturing images of everything she does just for social media. She then promises not to give her any money anymore or even drive her anywhere. When she leaves, Diamond apologizes to her dad for her behavior. He then advises her to grow up and stop the lavish spending because the last time he checked, she had spent nearly all her inherited money. She tells her dad she's going to make back all that money within a month. She proceeds to call her homeboy who owns the club in his presence. She is disappointed when he tells her he can't roll with her anymore because of her image now. Later during the day, after a boring live session, Diamond replies to a random guy's message in her DM. He says he's Sadiq and needs her help because he has been falsely accused of murder. He's currently serving a life sentence in Atlanta federal prison. She smiles at his texts and replies that they will talk. It's Diamond's best friend, Tamara's birthday, so Diamond does a little something for her. Diamond gives Tamara a present. Tamara thanks her and jovially warns Diamond not to go out without her or else the road crashes will keep coming. Diamond tells Tamara about Sadiq and shows his picture to her. She tells Tamara about his current situation and says she wishes to help him out because he has been keeping her mind off things since her accident. Days later, Diamond visits Sadiq. They smile at each other when their eyes meet. Sadiq compliments Diamond and thanks her for listening to him. Sadiq goes on to narrate his story to her. He was 17. During his senior year of high school, when the football season was over, he had to prepare for SATs. Mrs. Tumbler was his teacher in school and private teacher at home since his grades were poor, but he needed to pass the SATs because of his scholarship offer. One day, on his way to Mrs. Tumbler's house, he stopped by the basketball court to play for a while. He lost track of time and rushed to her house when he realized it was getting late. He knocked several times, but she didn't answer and he left. At that same time, while he was knocking, a lady sees him, makes a phone call, and on his way home, the police arrest him. Later, when he got to the station, he was told Mrs. Tumbler had been murdered and he was the suspect. Diamond promises to help him out after hearing his story. Diamond visits Cassandra, her family lawyer, and asks her to help Sadiq even though she has pending charges. She hands her some files, asks her to go through and point out solid evidence that proves Sadiq killed his teacher. She doesn't find any but tells Diamond it isn't as easy as she thinks it is. Diamond pleads with her to accept it on her behalf and she agrees. In return, she requests Diamond to be prepared and dress in a decent manner moving forward. They later go public with the case and gain some people to support their decision. The hashtag #FreeSadiq movement begins to go viral, and interestingly, some of the public also tag them as lovers. Days later, Diamond visits Sadiq and he confesses his feelings to her. She feels the same and they share a kiss. Diamond later informs him that the trial date is set. Time is up and Sadiq leaves. Diamond, on her way to the parking lot, almost gets hit by a car. She rushes home to inform her mom and dad about it, but they are out. She then calls Tamara to come over and be with her. After taking a shower, she heads to the hall to wait for Tamara, and all of a sudden, the lights go off. Just then a masked man attacks her, tosses her around the room and strangles her. Luckily, Tamara arrives and he escapes. Later, the police arrive, do their work and leave. Diamond's parents plead with her to let go of the case because she's risking her life, but she explains that she has come too far to step back. A week before the trial commences, Diamond pays a visit to Cassandra and she learns that there's a possibility the case could be dismissed without proceeding to trial. Brad Myers, the lawyer that defended Sadiq 10 years ago, is now the district attorney. He's been friends with Mrs. Tumbler's husband since college. He left out one important piece of information during the trial: Mrs. Tumbler was having an affair with Sadiq. He didn't bring it up in court because it could turn out that his friend, Mrs. Tumbler's husband, found out about the affair and killed the wife. Sadiq wouldn't have been jailed if that was mentioned. With this discovery, Cassandra can make Brad dismiss the case without them going to trial. Though it's good news, Diamond is hurt that Sadiq didn't tell her everything, so she goes to see him. Sadiq confesses that he was asked not to mention it to anyone because that was the only way for him to stay out of prison. He then apologizes for keeping that information from her. Cassandra invites Brad over and reveals to him that she knows he stopped Sadiq from disclosing his affair with Mrs. Tumbler, and this was to protect his friend. Cassandra informs him of the potential damage to his reputation and the risk of losing his job. She proposes that the case be dismissed to save himself. He just nods and leaves. Days later, Brad informs the public that Sadiq's case has been dismissed and Mrs. Tumbler's son goes crazy and leaves the place. Diamond goes to meet Sadiq and brings him home. A welcome party is held for him. Both his parents and Diamond's are present, and not forgetting Tamara. They dance and have fun all throughout the night. Their love story begins. Diamond and Sadiq get invited to a show to narrate how everything started and how Sadiq is coping with life now. They each talk about their parts of the story and appreciate each other for the change in their lives. Days later, Diamond takes Sadiq out for lunch. Sadiq mentions that his dream country is Hawaii, so Diamond promises to take him there. While they're still talking, the same car that almost hit Diamond stops by and Mrs. Tumbler's son steps out of it in a visibly angry manner. He goes straight to Sadiq and threatens to kill him just like he also did to his mom. He punches Sadiq and a fight begins, but they are separated before it could get worse. Diamond and Sadiq are welcomed by a drawing pasted on their door saying, "Do you want to know the truth?" Diamond shows it to Sadiq and he says he knows nothing about it. Later at night, Diamond struggles to fall asleep, so she heads to the kitchen to have some water. Suddenly, she hears footsteps and fearfully grabs a knife. She spots a new drawing on the door saying, "He's not who you think he is." She steps out to find whoever is behind that and ends up frightened by Sadiq's presence when he comes out looking for her. She hands the paper over to Sadiq and again he assures her he knows nothing about it. The next morning, Diamond's parents leave for a friend's wedding. Sadiq proposes they go out for a fancy breakfast that morning. Diamond agrees and takes him to one of her favorite restaurants. Sadiq excuses himself to the restroom, and in that very second, the lady behind the drawings approaches Diamond and gives her another drawing. She tells Diamond to meet her at the location on the sheet tonight for the truth to be revealed. Sadiq sees them and cautions the lady to stay out of their lives, but she hits him and hastily flees the scene. When he returns, he says nothing about what he saw and what he did, but Diamond apparently isn't comfortable anymore, so they leave. At night, while Diamond is asleep, she receives a message from Cassandra saying she has something important to tell her. Sadiq sees the message and deletes it immediately. He heads out to Diamond's car to look for the sheet the lady had given her. When he finds it, the lady appears behind him and strikes him down. Diamond is woken up by a call from Cassandra. She found some crucial information and needs Diamond to come to her office alone and promises to tell her everything when she arrives. Diamond rushes to her car and finds the sheet she was handed by the lady lying on the floor with bloodstains on it. Next, Sadiq is seen tied to a chair in the lady's house and there is a camera focused on him. She begins to narrate how he ruined her life when he killed Mrs. Tumbler. Mrs. Tumbler was the only person she could open up to when she was having problems at home. She was always comfortable around her because she always cheered her up when things were going wrong. On that day when it happened, she was with Mrs. Tumbler and later excused herself to use the washroom. Mrs. Tumbler spots Sadiq from afar and tells Shayla to stay there until she comes for her. She goes to meet Sadiq at the door and tells him she wants to end things between them. She asks him to find another tutor and let her be, but he gets furious and drags her into the bedroom. Shayla hears the noise and peeps through the door, seeing Sadiq strangling Mrs. Tumbler to death. He then picks his bag and hurries out. Shayla lost the only person that cared and wished the best for her. Sadiq is shocked Shayla saw everything, but he still remains quiet in the chair. She grabs a knife to kill him, and right there, Diamond appears with a gun and tells Shayla to let Sadiq go. When Sadiq sees Diamond with the gun, he asks her to shoot Shayla. Diamond aims at Sadiq, but it hits Shayla. Sadiq then hits Diamond, making her unconscious, and he leaves. Diamond and Shayla wake up minutes later and set off. Shayla remembers she needs the camera footage as evidence and goes back to the house for it. Diamond goes after her when she realizes she's keeping too long. Sadiq shows up with an axe in his right hand and Shayla in his left. He gives Diamond a second chance to choose between him and Shayla. Diamond is confused for a while, but she musters courage and shoots at Sadiq, but the gun just clicks with no bullet. She brings out another gun and fires at him, killing him. The two then leave the scene. At the end of the movie, Diamond and Tamara go hiking. Diamond mentions that she has deactivated her social media account and isn't ready for the world, but she takes a picture a few minutes later and posts it in her new account. Girl is addicted.